William Shakespeare, bapt. April 26, 1564, April 23, 1616 A, was an English poet, playwright, and actor, widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and the world's greatest dramatist. 234, he is often called England's national poet and the Bard of Avon, or simply the Bard. 5b, his extant works, including collaborations, consist of some 39 plays, c. 154 sonnets, 2 long narrative poems, and a few other verses, some of uncertain authorship. His plays have been translated into every major living language and are performed more often than those of any other playwright. 7. Shakespeare was born and raised in Stratford-upon-Avon, Warwickshire. At the age of 18, he married Anne Hathaway, with whom he had 3 children, Susanna and twins Hamnet and Judith. Sometime between 1585 and 1592, he began a successful career in London as an actor, writer, and part owner of a playing company called the Lord Chamberlain's Men, later known as the King's Men. At age 49, around 1613, he appears to have retired to Stratford, where he died 3 years later. Few records of Shakespeare's private life survive. This has stimulated considerable speculation about such matters as his physical appearance, his sexuality, his religious beliefs, and whether the works attributed to him were written by others. 8, 9, 10. Shakespeare produced most of his known works between 1589 and 1613. 11, 12d. His early plays were primarily comedies and histories and are regarded as some of the best work produced in these genres. Until about 1608, he wrote mainly tragedies, among them Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth, all considered to be among the finest works in the English language. 234, in the last phase of his life, he wrote tragicomedies, also known as romances, and collaborated with other playwrights. Many of Shakespeare's plays were published in editions of varying quality and accuracy in his lifetime. However, in 1623, 2 fellow actors and friends of Shakespeare's, John Hemmings and Henry Condell, published a more definitive text known as the First Folio, a posthumous collected edition of Shakespeare's dramatic works that included all but 2 of his plays. 13. The volume was prefaced with a poem by Ben Jonson, in which Jonson presciently hails Shakespeare in a now famous quote as not of an age, but for all time. 13. Throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, Shakespeare's works have been continually adapted and rediscovered by new movements in scholarship and performance. His plays remain popular and are studied, performed, and reinterpreted through various cultural and political contexts around the world. William Shakespeare was the son of John Shakespeare, an alderman and a successful glove maker, originally from Snitterfield, and Mary Arden, the daughter of an affluent landowning farmer. 14. He was born in Stratford-upon-Avon, where he was baptized on April 26, 1564. His date of birth is unknown, but is traditionally observed on 23rd of April, St. George's Day. 15. This date, which can be traced to a mistake made by an 18th-century scholar, has proved appealing to biographers because Shakespeare died on the same date in 1616. 1617, he was the third of 8 children, and the eldest surviving son. 18. Although no attendance records for the period survive, most biographers agree that Shakespeare was probably educated at the King's New School in Stratford, 1920-21, a free school chartered in 1553, 22, about a quarter mile, 400 meters, from his home. Grammar schools varied in quality during the Elizabethan era, but grammar school curricula were largely similar. The basic Latin text was standardized by Royal Decree, 2324, and the school would have provided an intensive education in grammar based upon Latin classical authors. 25. At the age of 18, Shakespeare married 26-year-old Anne Hathaway. The Consistory Court of the Diocese of Worcester issued a marriage license on November 27, 1582. The next day, 2 of Hathaway's neighbors posted bonds guaranteeing that no lawful claims impeded the marriage. 26. The ceremony may have been arranged in some haste since the Worcester Chancellor allowed the marriage banns to be read once instead of the usual 3 times, 27-28, and 6 months after the marriage Anne gave birth to a daughter, Susanna, baptized May 26, 1583. 29. Twins, son Hamnet and daughter Judith, followed almost 2 years later and were baptized February 2, 1585. 30. Hamnet died of unknown causes at the age of 11 and was buried August 11, 1596. 31. After the birth of the twins, Shakespeare left few historical traces until he is mentioned as part of the London theatre scene in 1592. The exception is the appearance of his name in the Complaints Bill of a law case before the Queen's Bench Court at Westminster dated Michaelmas term 1588 and October 9, 1589. 32. Scholars refer to the years between 1585 and 1592 as Shakespeare's lost years. 33. Biographers attempting to account for this period have reported many apocryphal stories. Nicholas Rowe, Shakespeare's first biographer, recounted a Stratford legend that Shakespeare fled the town for London to escape prosecution for deer poaching in the estate of local squire Thomas Lucy. Shakespeare is also supposed to have taken his revenge on Lucy by writing a scurrilous ballad about him. 34-35. Another 18th century story has Shakespeare starting his theatrical career minding the horses of theatre patrons in London. 36. John Aubrey reported that Shakespeare had been a country schoolmaster. 37. Some 20th century scholars have suggested that Shakespeare may have been employed as a schoolmaster by Alexander Houghton of Lancashire, a Catholic landowner who named a certain William Shakeshaft in his will. 38-39. Little evidence substantiates such stories other than hearsay collected after his death, and Shakeshaft was a common name in the Lancashire area. 40-41. It is not known definitively when Shakespeare began writing, but contemporary allusions and records of performances show that several of his plays were on the London stage by 1592. 42. By then, he was sufficiently known in London to be attacked in print by the playwright Robert Greene in his Groat's Worth of Wit. There is an upstart crow, beautified with our feathers, that with his tiger's heart wrapped in a player's hide, supposes he is as well able to bombast out a blank verse as the best of you, and being an absolute Johannes factotum, is in his own conceit the only shake seen in a country. 43. Scholars differ on the exact meaning of Greene's words, 43-44, but most agree that Greene was accusing Shakespeare of reaching above his rank and trying to match such university-educated writers as Christopher Marlowe, Thomas Nash, and Greene himself, the so-called university wits. 45. The italicized phrase parodying the line "Oh, tiger's heart wrapped in a woman's hide" from Shakespeare's Henry VI, Part 3, along with the pun shake scene, clearly identify Shakespeare as Greene's target. As used here, Johannes factotum, jack of all trades, refers to a second-rate tinkerer with the work of others, rather than the more common universal genius. 43-46.